N'Keal Harry was an absolute steal at 32. What are you guys talking about? Forget Tom Brady's passing numbers. He's the GOAT because he was the best punter in the NFL. I take Johnny Hekker over Patrick Mahomes to be my quarterback any day.
Welcome to the No Punt Intended Sportscast with your host, Parody07.
Welcome back to the No Punt Intended Sportscast. I'm your host, Guy, and I'm here with, as always, the DAWGS. And we have a dog who's a very, very happy dog today. We have Hound, our resident Chiefs fan, now the proud participant in Yes, It's a Dynasty. Congratulations to the Kansas City Chiefs being 2023-2024 season's NFL World Champions. You did it with a team that wasn't the most talented. You did it with a team that the offense at times looked abysmal. You did it with a team that loved to play on the edge. But by golly, you did it. That's all that matters, right? I mean,
that's all that matters.
It was the most quintessential, and everybody took our takes, by the way, that this team reminded them of the 2018 Patriots. I will have you know, we said it here first, folks. We did.
Yep.
Now, the last video got like 7 views, so there's only 7 people that know it. So that's on you guys for not paying attention.
But all 7 views were from ESPN and Fox Sports analysts, I bet you.
Yeah,
they all stole it.
2 of them were the two were Ian Rappaport and who's the guy from sports from ESPN. That's like their Ian Rappaport. Adam Schefter. Yeah, so it was Adam Schefter and Ian Rappaport, and then they blabbed to everybody, and then it was everybody's idea all at the same time.
And then Andy Reid actually watched it too.
Yeah, right. I tell you who didn't watch it was Travis Kelce, because I think he would have been a little bit more respectful on the sideline with his coach had he had listened to our podcast. However, we'll move on from that for now, as far as just the thoughts that I have, and we're gonna mix it up. We usually start with LB, but since we have just it just feels like he's the birthday boy. I mean, I don't know how else to put it. Hound, go ahead, just give us your thoughts on the game, right? How you as a Chiefs fan felt the game went, and a handful of thoughts on just how the game played out. Whatever you feel was important to you or to the outcome of the game. Give us a few minutes on what you think about the Chiefs now being a 3-time in 5-year and the first back-to-back Super Bowl champion since the 2003-2004 Patriots.
It went well.
Clearly.
Enough said. So it was a very good Super Bowl. I think everyone was scared in the first half that it was going to be a very boring Super Bowl. It's like, is this a Patriots-Rams Super Bowl repeat? No one does anything, but it got very interesting in the second half and going into overtime. Very fun game, I think, for everyone to watch. Obviously, a lot more fun when your team wins. So, anyways, with that being said, I think the biggest thing with this game is, one, that the score was low, kind of as how I was predicting it, but it's really not too surprising considering all of the Chiefs games have been pretty low scoring this season because our offense can't score 30 points. So they have to be low scoring, and our defense is just that good. So I think that's the big story of this game is our offense did fine. Everyone's talking about Mahomes being an MVP and Travis Kelce having a good second half, but really the story is the defense. Obviously, because if you only allow the 49ers offense to score 19 points in regulation, I think that's a job well done. Because we talked about it in our Super Bowl preview about all the weapons the 49ers have. They have McCaffrey, they've got Debo, they've got Ayuk. And how are they going to slow all these people down? And here's what's very fascinating. After the game, a lot of people were posting a lot of very interesting stats. Did you know that in this game, the Chiefs defense played a unusually large amount of man-to-man coverage?
Interesting.
Compared to what is normally played against the 49ers. Most teams play a majority or vast majority of zone coverage. The only team to have played more man coverage against the 49ers this season was the Browns. And the Browns beat the 49ers this year. But it shows that Spagnuolo believed in his defense enough, right? That he's like, our guys can compete against your guys. And it worked. Because we've got a lot of talented guys. Because like if you look like, okay, McCaffrey. We didn't stop McCaffrey, right? McCaffrey had an excellent game by any standard. He had 80 receiving yards, 80 rushing yards. He had like 160 total yards. That's a great game for him. And you were never going to be able to get shut out McCaffrey. But we did slow him down a little bit, especially in the run. Now, I've heard a bunch of these analysts after the game. Boy, the 49ers didn't run the football enough, right? They didn't run the football enough. They didn't use Christian McCaffrey enough. Now, I think there's an argument to be said that they should have used him more because he was good. But you can't say that they didn't use McCaffrey a lot because McCaffrey had 22 carries in this football game, which is tied for the most carries he's had in a game all season. It's the most carries he had in a game in the entire playoffs. So the 49ers definitely weren't not handing off the football. They were. But McCaffrey was held to less than 4 yards per carry, which by McCaffrey standards is an amazing. Good for a lot of other teams. They'd be fine with 3.5 yards per carry, but that was important. I think the biggest thing the 49ers offense should have done differently is pass the football even more to Christian McCaffrey. Because if there's one weakness in this Chiefs defense, it's pass catching running backs. Look at the the Bills game. James Cook kept beating us over and over again whenever Josh Allen would just check down to James Cook. And in this game, you see, he had 8 catches for 80 yards, a lot of yards. They should have just kept going to that again and again until the Chiefs had to stop that. So, but our defense did amazing. We did slow down Debo Samuel and Ayuk. They each only had 3 catches each. And George Kittle, he only had, I believe, 2 catches for, I want to say, less than 10 yards in the game.
It was something like that. It was close to that.
Something like that. Yeah, something around that area. Defense did amazing. But, people have been talking about that. I just want to mention 3 kind of unsung heroes of this Super Bowl for us, because everyone's talking about Kelce and Mahomes or Chris Jones, right? Because they all had great games. I want to mention a few players that you may or may not know of and that I believe did amazing in this game. So first is Butker, our kicker.
Yes.
Most people know who that is, but he did amazing. 4 for 4 in field goals, broke the record for longest field goal in the Super Bowl. And I don't know if people know this, but in this game, he broke the record for most career field goals ever kicked in the Super Bowl by a kicker. So he's kicked 9 total field goals in all the Super Bowls he's played. He's kicked 9. The next closest is 7 by Adam Vinatieri and I believe Steven Gostkowski. So he broke that record in this game as well.
2 Pats. Let's go.
So, yeah, really, right? It's just surprising. You wouldn't think Butker would have had that, already. It doesn't seem like he's that old of a kicker.
It's because New England usually scored touchdowns in the Super Bowl, but we'll leave it alone.
Oh, true. But anyways, so Butker, amazing. I believe that if Butker had to kick like a 50-yard field goal to win the game at the end, he has a shot at being MVP. Shot. I'm not saying that they would have, but there had been a shot.
Yeah.
Anyways, second unsung hero is McDuffie, Trent McDuffie, cornerback. If you've been listening to our Sportscast, you know that name. But if you're listening to national coverage, you may not. McDuffie had an amazing game. I don't think people realize it. McDuffie, he played 40 coverage snaps, right? A lot of them.
That's a lot.
He was targeted 7 times. He allowed 2 receptions for 9 yards.
Wow.
And he had 3 forced incompletions. Like, he locked down, and these are good wide receivers that he's going up against. So McDuffie had a great game. And then the last unsung hero before I, let everyone else talk, is Leo Chenal. Man, what a great performance by Leo Chenal. Fun fact, by Pro Football Focus, he was the highest graded player in Super Bowl 58.
What position does Leo Chenal play?
He's a defensive lineman, but he does some coverage as well. So
he's like an edge linebacker kind of.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So he kind of floats around, and that's perhaps one of the reasons why you don't hear about him a whole lot, because he does a lot of coverage and he doesn't do a lot of like the fancy plays, but he's just had such a solid game for us. He just was so important in this game. He had, I believe, he had quite a few important plays. He had, he was involved in a few of the really big plays of like tackle for losses.
Mm-hmm.
And he even forced one of the fumbles in the game. I can't remember which one. Probably the McCaffrey one, if I'm remembering correctly, which helped a lot.
Yeah, it was.
So he's just had a solid game. Again, not like he had 3 sacks or anything, but if he's not in that game, you're talking about like the game probably would have ended up differently, because you need those guys who are just solid play to play. So again, a name that people probably don't know. But yeah. Linebacker, he plays up on the line because that's how Steve Spagnuolo likes it. He mixes around he likes people up on the line a lot. So yeah, great performance by Leo Chenal. Anyways,
excellent.
With that being said, I don't want to take up all your time. So
well,
there you go.
You definitely had the ability to take as much time as you needed, considering the amount of times you have correctly called some things. I mean, for people's recollection, Mr. Hound predicted a 24-20 Chiefs victory, and it was 25-22, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
Final score.
That's correct.
So he was only a few points off, and if you remember, he said if he was Nostradamus, he would never completely correctly predict something, but he would predict it pretty daggone close. So the jury's still out, but my vote is for Nostradamus, some Schragerism, if you will. So, and a fun fact, I did know who Leo Chenal is.
Nice.
Because I mock drafted him to New England several times the year that he was up for draft, and I was a little sad when we didn't get him, and now I'm even more sad.
What a coincidence.
Yeah, so imagine me getting something right about a draft. You would have never thought of that. Because I get all the draft stuff right, but nothing else, apparently.
Yeah.
But I'm going to shut up now. I'm going to let LB, who McCaffrey, number one fan that's not a 49ers fan, take over. And I'm curious what his thoughts are, especially with his background, and I'm curious if his thoughts on the game are similar to mine. So I'm going to let him take the floor, and then we'll see how we go.
Yeah, so it was certainly a good game. I thought the fact that it was really close to begin with, especially the first two quarters, despite, I mean, when I say close with, I mean score wise, not the way it felt, because it felt like the 49ers were really dominating that game in really all phases, offense, defense, and special teams. But the problem is you look up at the score, and at any given point, it was still a 2-score game. I don't even think the Chiefs or the 49ers extended their lead to 14. I think the most it got to was 10.
Yes.
Which against the Chiefs is a tall task to ask your defense to hold on to. With that being said, I thought their defense played phenomenal for basically all but 2 drives of the game. The last 2 drives when Patrick Mahomes had the game-tying drive and then the game-winning drive in overtime. Defensive coordinator, I thought, was calling a very good game for the most part, which was the former Carolina Panthers interim head coach last year, Steve Wilkes, who I think is a really good coach, who has since been fired from the 49ers staff, which I thought was interesting, given the fact that they played super well and held Patrick Mahomes to 25 points, which 7 came in overtime. So you hold, that team
19
with that caliber quarterback in the Super Bowl to 19 points in regulation. I mean, you should, in theory, win that game, 6 or 7 times out of 10, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Given how talented your 49ers team is. I mean, just crazy stuff. That's why the Super Bowl, man, you got to play till the last whistle. And the interesting decision to take the ball first, given the new overtime rules, and then to kick the field goal. I heard a couple different theories, and I think Shanahan was saying that he was playing for the 3rd possession. But in overtime, I don't think there's going to be 3 possessions in overtime games going forward. I think at most you're going to get those 2 possessions. I think, which first of all, the rule is a good change to allow both teams to have possession of the ball to go score, unless the first team who has the ball turns over and it's like a defensive touchdown, right? That's essentially the new rule. So I'm in favor of the new rule. But I thought it was an interesting decision to take the ball first, because there's less known when you take the ball first. If you take the ball second, you know exactly what you need to do. You either need to go down, kick a field goal, or you need to go score a touchdown, and you have four downs to get a first down rather than 3 when you take the ball first, because you may punt, you may play the field position game, you may try to extend the drive and get a field goal. So you're kind of at a disadvantage in terms of what you actually need to do. Unless, of course, you go down and score a touchdown, then okay, awesome. That's what everyone would want to do. But of course, that didn't happen. So I would have, hindsight's 2020. But I think the blueprint going forward against Mahomes has to be, if you want to beat Mahomes, you need to have the ball last. Because if he gets the ball last, he's going to beat you. That's just what history has shown us so far. The Chiefs overcame a 10-point deficit. And I thought that game really changed when the punt bounced off the punt returner's leg, which is super, super disheartening, because I thought the 49ers special teams were playing their tail off. I mean, they were really having a positive impact on that game. Field possession, especially on the punt, like their punt coverages, their field goal unit was mostly solid, -1 mishap on a blocked extra point, which again, whether the guy hit it low or the D-line made a great play, it ultimately ended up being another turning point in that game. So there's just so many different things that ultimately went in favor for the Chiefs that needed, to happen for them to have a fighting chance there at the end. I thought it was a great game. I was super surprised that McCaffrey fumbling the football. That is way out of character. But again, that's just a Super Bowl. There's a lot of emotion, a lot of anxiety, a lot of jitters, just before you settle in. And again, you don't fumble there. The 49ers were looking like they were marching all the way down the field and going to put up 7 real quick, punch the Chiefs in the mouth. So you never know how that game ultimately unfolds. Of course, it's a moot point because he ended up fumbling. Just crazy game. But I enjoyed watching it. I really did.
Yeah. Quick point: the blocked punt or field goal. I forgot about that. That was also Leo Chenal, so he's the one who blocked it as well.
Yeah,
so
crazy stuff,
man.
I kind of remind again. We've mentioned the Patriots 2018, and I'm not saying that they're different teams, but it does. The game kind of reminded me of a Patriots game because you feel like you kind of played better than them for most of the game, but they stick around and then they get you. And like on just weird like special team plays, and then just at the end they just get it done, right? And being having like being a Chiefs fan during those Patriot years where they were so dominant, it just felt a lot like that. So it's interesting being a little bit on the other side because it's like this doesn't feel right.
I hear you. It was one of those things where New England was at its height. Was one of those teams that didn't beat themselves. And that allowed them to stick in games in which other teams maybe started out well, but made a mistake here or made a mistake there that kept New England around. And if you're within 14 points and you got 6 minutes left in the fourth quarter, that's enough. Yep. That, as crazy as that is, that's how that was the stigma around the team. One thing I wanted to ask LB about something that I feel his perspective, I think, would be the most insightful considering his background. Because LB, you played in college, so you're familiar with what sideline etiquette is and how you're supposed to jump around and interact and that sort of thing. One of the memories that is going to be kind of ingrained in Super Bowl history is Kelsey getting upset with Andy Reid for pulling him out of the game for a couple plays, and him. I don't remember if he checked him or if he pushed him. I don't remember what he did, but he got physical with Reid and almost knocked him over. Some of his teammates had to pull him aside, and my understanding is that Reid came up to him during the game afterwards and told him that he appreciated his passion and left it at that. Didn't say anything about didn't say anything about the whether or not Kelsey crossed the line. And on the New Heights podcast, which is where Kelsey and his brother Jason have a podcast, and both of them felt afterward that Kelsey crossed the line. What is your perspective on that? Because I felt like that was something maybe not so much for the fair weather fan, but for those people who are really into the sport, I feel like that's something that's really important that I think we should address. So LB, I would really appreciate your perspective on that.
Yeah, so I agree. I do think he crossed the line by making physical contact, whether you want to call it a push, a shove, check, whatever adjective you want to use. As a player who's in the prime of your physical prime of your life, an NFL tight end, again, going up to a 65-year-old coach, just for context. And again, age and size doesn't matter. You have to treat them all the same. They're your coach or your, staff, whether it's, athletic trainers or referees or anything like that. Bottom line is you don't get to touch anyone. I'm okay with the yelling, with the screaming, with the jumping up and down, with the swearing at each other. I get that. Your emotions are running high. It's the Super Bowl, for crying out loud. These are some of the most competitive human beings on the planet playing on the biggest stage of their life. So the whole emotion thing, showing passion, the whole yelling stuff or whatever, I'm cool with everything up to the point when you make contact with an official, a coach, any member of the staff, anyone not wearing pads between the whistles. You don't get to touch in that sort of fashion when you're pissed off. You know what I mean? Like, that's where the line is drawn. You cannot, in my opinion, don't get to make physical contact with another person in that sort of context, let alone your head coach who's 65 years old, who's not in a great physical shape like Travis Kelce, who's a professional tight end in the NFL, for crying out loud. It's just, you don't get to do that. So I definitely think that was just more ammo, more fuel to the fire for people who don't like Travis Kelce.
Yeah.
Which, again, personal feelings aside, doesn't matter. You call balls and strikes, and I think you just can't touch the head coach like that, no matter who it is, no matter what player, no matter what situation. You just have to be able to control your emotions to the point where you don't make contact in that manner, even if it's unintentional. You have to know better, and you have to be better because you're a professional. It's the Super Bowl. All eyes are on you, on the coach. You can't be doing that.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. My comment after the game was that pads don't give you privileges. Okay,
right.
They give you their responsibility. Okay, these people, this is like the Roman gladiators, right? These people are warriors. All right. Like LB said, I think I really couldn't put it any better than he did. When you're in pads, you don't touch anybody who's not also in pads. And even if somebody else is in pads, if the whistle is blown, you keep your hands off of them. It's just like, some of it is common sense for like being able to benefit your team for the purpose of, making sure you don't get penalized. Now, I understand, like, if a late hit on a quarterback and then a center comes over and pushes the guy, like, that's one thing, right? There's a situation, there's a time and place, that it's tit for tat. Just make sure that you're defending your guys. But the attitude that in the place that's coming from, as far as that goes, the intent of that is much different than where Travis Kelce was. Travis Kelce was out of control in that moment, and he needed to have more self-control. And I think he apologized, and he knows he crossed the line. Whether he means the apology or not, I get the impression that him, Mahomes, and Reed are all very close. So maybe that relationship allowed him to feel like he could be a little bit more vulnerable in that scenario. I don't know how else to put it. But yeah, I definitely think that he crossed the line in that moment. Whatever the case, I think Andy Reid handled it fantastic, and why he's a top 5 coach of all time right now. I mean, probably top 4 or 3, depending on where you rank people like Don Shula and some of these other coaches. But he is an amazing head coach, and that's definitely part of the equation of what happened on Sunday. And before I get into my thoughts, I heard Hound try to jump in. So do you have another thought on that, Hound? I know we've kind of ganged up on your guy a little bit, but
yeah, I mean, I think like everyone, you can't be like, yeah, it was great. No, obviously, I think everyone agrees that it crossed a line, right? But as you were mentioning at the very end, like Mahomes, Kelce, and Reed are very close. Like, it's very, like, Reed's been on like Kelce's podcast at least once, if not multiple times. Kelce has been there with Andy Reid since Andy Reid first came to Kansas City. He was in that first draft class. Like they're very close, and they talk about that all off season. So I think a lot of people were surprised that you would have, like, why would you have this contact, right? And not good. Like, as a coach, because Reed was asked this, and he mentioned, as you mentioned, Guy, is like he appreciates Kelce's passion, right? And he seemed to kind of blow it off. But because you want guys to be passionate, obviously, and you want guys to be willing to go up to your coach and talk, but they've got to be able to control their emotions, right? You can't have, when he gets physical, that's where it crosses the line, right?
I agree.
Like if Kelsey didn't make Reed stumble over and it looked awful, and he just screamed at him, I'd be 100% fine with that. I would be better with that than like Kelsey's just silently going to the bench and not saying anything, right?
Yeah, I think
it's a better sign when they're doing that, right?
I hear you.
But you go too far and you get that, right? So, anyways.
Well, that's I agree. I'm glad we all can have like the same feeling on this. I think that's one of the more interesting things that happened in the game that I think people who don't usually watch football may or may not have understood. I'm kind of curious how the Swifties feel about it because
yeah.
Swifties, he will not be wearing pads at home, most likely, number one. Number two, I think even in the home, the amount of bodyguards that will be available to Mrs. Swift will be enough to overcome the rage monster that is Travis Kelce. So, if I'm going to hyperbolize it, but a couple of my thoughts on the game, and I've kind of sprinkled my thoughts as we've talked. But my biggest thing is the things that were staples of the New England Patriots throughout their dynasty: lack of turnovers, efficiency on third down, and have the advantage on special teams. And you are in a position to win most games if you can accomplish all three of those things. And the Chiefs did all three of those things. They were, at the very least, they were more efficient on third down than San Francisco was. I don't remember particularly thinking that I didn't sit there and think, man, the Chiefs have converted a lot of third downs today. It was more along the lines of, wow, the San Francisco 49ers have not converted a lot of third downs today. Obviously, you all mentioned the unfortunate bounce that went Kansas City's way during that punt return. Watching it live, I was confused because I didn't realize it hit the guy. I just thought the punt return had been hit one too many times and was like, oh, I just want the ball. And I was really confused why he was going at it. But once I saw that that one of his teammates had touched it, then I was like, wow, that guy made a really tried to make a heads up play. And some people that I was watching with, it's like, well, he should have just jumped on top of it. And I was like, well, I don't know. It's tough because if you make a dive at it and you miss it, then you're out of the play. So if you're down on your feet and you happen to mishandle it, at the very least you can make you can make up for a false step in that moment. But that's a point that I definitely think was a difference in the game. Every single turnover in this game meant a lot. The Chiefs only made the one mistake. Patrick Mahomes only made the one mistake as far as the turnovers go, and it could have cost them more than it did. But that Chiefs defense was stingy. L'Jarius Sneed, who is somebody that Hound didn't bring up, I thought played really well as well.
I was doing unsung heroes.
Yeah, that's fair.
I think he's. I think people. Yeah.
I think Tony Romo loved him a little Sneed. I'll give Tony Romo that. But
and I love Sneed.
One person that not anybody who has really talked about this pod, who I am happy to shed a little light on, is a gentleman named Brock Purdy, who is the quarterback of the San Francisco 49ers. A man who at one point this season was a MVP consideration. Okay, this kid is a very last pick in not last year's, but the year before's draft, and went up against Jimmy Garoppolo and Sam Darnold and he didn't win the job outright. But when Garoppolo did Garoppolo things and broke his toenail, and his hair was off just to the right, just a little too much. Brock got his chance to play, and he did outduel Trey Lance. That's the other person he outdueled was Trey Lance, who was worth not just one, not two, but 3 first-round picks, by the way, and is now backing up Cooper Rush, who was backing up Dak Prescott.
Can I say something on that right quick?
Yeah.
That makes the Bryce Young pick seem that less bad.
Yeah.
I got it bad as a Panthers fan. I'm like, dang, I could have been Trey Lance fan on the 49ers. But hey, they got Brock Purdy, so they started laughing all the way to the bank. They just played the Super Bowl, so it doesn't really matter. Anyways.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. So a lot of people, believe it or not, a lot of New England media has been like absolutely livid with each other. Like every debate in these Super Bowl review shows in New England media, in the context of New England, have been like super polarized about this kid named Brock Purdy. And what's crazy to me is that he was the most neutral player on the entire field. He didn't do a thing to win them the game. He didn't do a thing to lose them the game. He was the quintessential Alex Smith, game manager. That was exactly what he was. Okay. Yep. Now, something that we talked about in our last pod was his ability to use his legs as a sneaky athlete, similar to Alex Smith, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely agree.
The Chiefs put a spy on him on 3rd down. I don't know if you guys realize that. The Chiefs put a spy on Brock Purdy. And what that means is that they designate a player, sometimes a safety, sometimes a linebacker. Every once in a while, they'll let like a defensive end or something do it. But they allow everybody to rush the passer. And it's a little bit easier to do this when you play man behind it, I think. Makes a little bit more sense to do it when you play man behind it, which adds to the layer that Hound mentioned of them playing more man than most other teams did. Mm-hmm. Them putting a spy on them, I think, allowed the it forced the 49ers to make plays within their system, which you would think would be like playing into the 49ers' hands, right? I mean, this is the offensive genius of Kyle Shanahan and the stigma of the 49ers just having this amazing offense that draws up an amazing plays within this scheme that everything fits so perfectly together. Mm-hmm. Why did the Chiefs feel it necessary to force Brock Purdy to do what Kyle Shanahan told him? And if you look at the frustration on Brandon Ayuk's camp, Brock Purdy is still in his 2nd year. He's a young buck. He still has not yet to have a full offseason because of his injury last year. The kid is an absolute stone cold killer as far as his emotions and his ability to stay whelmed. And his, I forget the term, like not stature, but just his,
demeanor.
Yeah. The way he holds himself is it's Brady-esque. It really is. He just kind of like, he's the same person no matter what. And I think that's really important for a quarterback. And I think it's the reason why he's been as successful as he is. But Kyle Shanahan was upset with him, especially I think in the 3rd quarter. And I noticed it. And the reason he was upset is because Kyle Shanahan, who had spent all this time putting these plays together, Purdy missed some throws. And that's why I put him in net neutral. And you say, well, he made that amazing play where he rolled out to the right and threw to his fullback who laid it out and got a first down on that. He did have one run, I think, that got him a first down, if I'm not mistaken. And he did make some good throws. Like, I'm not taking away some of the things he did. He really did make some plays. But I think he missed as many plays as he made, which makes him a net neutral in the game. And I think that's part of the reason why San Francisco's head coach, Kyle Shanahan, was upset with him. I do think that they ran the ball enough to win the game. I just don't think they called the runs in timely fashions, especially in the second half.
Fair enough. Yeah.
I felt like they got away from the run at the beginning of the third quarter. And maybe he saw something on tape, and he was like, I think we could really throw over these guys now. And after, 2-3 and outs, you got to try something different. Okay. I think he got back to the run a little late. And then by the time he got back to the run was less appropriate because the game was in a different place. So, yeah. And when you're playing more it was like they were playing catch up without even being behind. It was a weird. I felt that way. I don't know if you all felt that way, but that's how I felt they were playing. Yeah. Again, kudos to the Chiefs. The reason why it's so impressive that Spagnuolo decided to go man. Number one, you have to have the coverage players to be able to do that against a team with this many weapons. Like that is actually how New England beat so many teams in their prime, is they not just scored more than you because they were better offensively, but in some of the years where our defense rode us, it was because our corners were really strong. I mean, Stephon Gilmore, Darrelle Revis, Brandon Brower, Ty Law back in the day, Asante Samuel and Devin McCourty. I could go on and on and on with all the coverage players we've had. And that's what we did against the Rams, too, in the Super Bowl, is we played a lot of man against that team. And it felt like they got hit in the mouth. So that's really impressive. And on top of that, it makes sense to go a lot of zone against a team that likes to play a lot of horizontal and misdirection, because when you're in zone, that allows you to stay put when there's all this motion. Now, they might have been playing like a match coverage, which basically means if you have a guy in front of you and he moves, you just pass him off to the next guy, but the next guy covers him in man. And they mixed it up very well. It's not like they play the same defense every play. But Spagnuolo had a fantastic plan for the game. The two things that I think, other than just the third downs and some of the decision-making that I think made a difference here in the game, I think just overall coaching by the Chiefs was outclassed the 49ers for two reasons. Number one, I think the reason why Steve Wilkes got fired, frankly, is because I think Kyle Shanahan was extremely upset that they went into soft zone, high shell in the last couple minutes of the game, which basically allowed anybody within 7 yards of the line of scrimmage to be wide open. And what does Mahomes do? He 7 yards you to death with guys that are pretty good after the catch. So, I mean, kind of, and that's actually one of the reasons why he called a timeout and made Wilkes, the offensive coach, made the defensive coordinator, change what he was doing. I mean, that's pretty bad. I don't know if Wilkes called a great game prior to that, but I thought he was doing fine. I wouldn't have fired him if I was just looking at the first 3.5 quarters. I don't know if I'd fire him after the whole thing, but I don't know. I think Shanahan was mad at a lot of people after the game.
Here's something interesting really quick about Shanahan.
Yeah.
He reminds me of kind of a young Andy Reid. Like Andy Reid, young in his career, was very focused on plays, very creative, wasn't great during the game. Like game clock management, just those in-game decisions, kind of struggled a little bit, but he was great on the offensive play design.
Yeah.
And Shanahan kind of reminds me of that.
I can see the correlation for sure. Here is the one other thing that I think that this offensive genius has kind of missed a little bit. the ability of the quarterback or somebody on the offense to make a hot, like basically to call some sort of hot route. I think there were times in this game where Purdy, if he had the opportunity to switch to a different play, would have. I really do. I think a perfect example is the third down that towards the end of the game, he ended up trying to throw a quick slant to Brandon Ayuk, and he had a free rusher. I mean, you got to go with a hot route on that, but do you want to go Ayuk, your second or third best receiver, against the best cover corner in the game, like in the Super Bowl? Like, I don't know how you. And on top of that, you got a guy in your face to do that. If they could have audible to some sort of outside screen or something like that, I feel like they would have. But the Shanahan offense, the way it's designed, the center has the ability to change the slant of the line, in the alignment of the offensive line. But he doesn't change the play. The play call, it is what it is, and they just run it. And I think if Shanahan took some time to implement some audibles that would have allowed Purdy to get out of bad plays, I think that would have made a difference in the game. And that was what Brady, Manning, Mahomes, all of them are fantastic at doing. They see a defense and they don't like the call, they don't like the look. They have the ability to change the play. And Purdy is young, so I get it, but I don't think that's been something in Shanahan's pocket for a while. So I think that's something Shanahan's offense, despite its intricacies and its flamboyance and its success, I think that could be the next layer to what he's building out there. But good game, not the result I really wanted. I was rooting for McCaffrey. Oh. I really was. This is one of the few times I wanted a California team to win a championship, but naturally, when I do want them to win it, they don't. And when a team like the Steph Curry led Warriors are playing, my Boston Celtics in the NBA Finals, and I'm thinking, it's this team is just Curry and we got everybody, and then we don't even show up, it feels like, for half the games. And then the next year we get beat by, guess who? Miami. It's like it doesn't matter what sport it is. It's all Florida teams beating up on the Boston teams when they shouldn't have no business doing it. But good game. I enjoyed myself. I agree with a lot of what you guys said. I felt like 2018 Patriots vibes. I was wondering if it was going to be a really, really low scoring game. And then when I saw the way that the play was developing towards the second half, I had a hard time believing that the 49ers were going to pull it off. So Shanahan does Shanahan things yet again. And Mahomes, by the way, absolutely quick snapped to the 49ers on the last play. Just so you guys know.
Yeah.
That was 100% a situationally aware team. Again, coaching, outclassing the other team. So congratulations. It's a dynasty. I have nothing more to say. I think it was a good showcase of the NFL for sure for all the Swifties that have never watched a game in their life. So congratulations to those people. And I do mean people. It's not just females. So congratulations. You're now going to be one of us. And you have to keep an eye on Travis Kelce from now on. So make sure to buy your NFL Sunday ticket on YouTube TV. Shameless plug. Just to wrap it up, we've got a few minutes here. I didn't expect to go this long on this, so but I really appreciate the time we've spent on it. I don't think we have time to go over our individual teams like I kind of planned on, so we'll save that for next episode. What we'll do now is kind of give our thoughts on the NFL season as a whole. Just something that left an impression on you. You can pick one or two things. It's completely up to you guys. Whatever you feel like was something that maybe going into the season you thought, okay, this is going to be this way, and then maybe something turned out differently than you thought, or you thought correctly and it was even more so than you expected. So, whatever you feel made an impression on you from the 2023 through 2024 NFL season. I start with Hound. What is, other than Chiefs did it again, what's your impressions as a whole for the entire NFL season?
So I would call this NFL season the season of fake outs, basically, because there was so many. If you look at the script, they set up so many storylines, and then they basically nope, never mind. A few, for example, New Jets era. Nope. Same old Jets. Doesn't matter. Whatever. Who cares? Bills over the hump. The Bills looking really. Nope. Never mind. Same thing as the last 5 years. Chiefs, have no offense. They're out. Nope. Same thing. And it's kind of, Detroit Lions, they're going to go to this. Nope. Never mind. It's just going to be the number 1 seed 49ers. So it was just the season of fake outs where you saw a lot of there's some interesting storylines this year, not really fleshing out, and kind of everything going back to what everyone kind of predicted at the beginning of the season. Chiefs and 49ers before the season were kind of popular picks before there was ever a snap. And then people kind of deviated on the Chiefs before that mid-season. And people were worried about the 49ers in the playoffs, but at the end, it didn't really matter. Everything kind of ended up back kind of the same. So, yeah, this NFL season was the season of fake outs.
I like it. And to add to that would be storylines like Josh Dobbs and Jake Browning.
Yes. It's like Josh Dobbs, the future of
the Minnesota Vikings.
Nope.
Yeah. Nope.
He was like,
Nope.
Okay. Russell Wilson, bad. Okay. Everyone's thought, Russell Wilson, good. Fascinating. Oh, no, he's bad. Never mind.
Yeah. That was a double fake.
Okay.
That was a double fake out.
Whoa.
That was a pump fake, let the guy blow by, then dribble to the side, then shoot on that one. That was,
yeah.
Love it.
Joe Flacco?
Yeah. No. Oh my gosh, that's good.
Anyways.
Yeah, absolutely. You could go on and on for that. So that was good. LB, what is some of your thoughts on the NFL season that just passed?
Crazy how many injuries there were to big name guys.
Yeah.
Super sad to see any guy get hurt, let alone franchise quarterbacks like a Kirk Cousins and stuff like that. That one sticks out to me. Super happy for Baker Mayfield coming back out and I think reviving his career. Former Panther, former first overall pick, former Cleveland Brown. So happy for him as a person. Just crazy, just unpredictable.
Yeah.
I really thought certain teams underperformed. Like the Bills, I thought they underperformed.
I agree.
I think they had a really rough stretch and just couldn't get back. Right, even though they did make the playoffs. It's just, again, they can't get that monkey off their back that is the Chiefs, even having a home playoff game. I thought they underperformed. I thought the Eagles fell off. That was surprising to see. They just kind of died in the water. The Cowboys are going to Cowboys, as always, year in and year out. So that was funny. CJ Stroud is going to be a monster for years to come.
Yeah.
So I've been looking out for him, which really hurts my feelings because
I hear that
second overall pick, not the first like he should have been.
And you didn't have to trade for him.
But nonetheless, the NFL's in a great spot going forward. I'm sure they're all super happy with where they are. Can't complain. What a great season from just a football fan in general, despite, the Panthers not doing well. Still fun to watch individual players and root for individual guys. Of course, hope next year's better for Panthers. And I can't say it can't get worse, although technically it could. We could go defeated.
Completely
You never know.
defeated.
We could go 0-17, so technically it could. I don't think that's going to be the case, but we'll find out next year.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. I'm going to refrain from the Taylor Swift reference. So even though I just didn't refrain from it by mentioning it, so that one's on me. But my thing that I left this season impressed with, every season, the first thing that happens every season is this wave of free agency. And then it's the draft. And usually the draft kind of dominates the early season headlines. And everybody says, well, it's a strong draft for quarterbacks, or it's a strong draft for tackles, or it's a weak draft for cornerbacks. You know, they all have different things. You know, it's like, well, there's 2 or 3 players that are really good that, because they're the only good players at that position, are going to go higher than they should, and all the rest. The last handful of years, the storyline has been, wow, there is just such an influx of wide receivers. And you can look at the last handful of years, and there's been some really good receivers coming out of the draft the last 4 or 5 years. But last year's draft, or you want to call it the draft for this past season, the complaint was that there was some good receivers, but most of the ones that had any sort of juice to them were these slot types that were quote unquote outdated, and they're really only good for, you know, certain offenses and all the rest. My impression was that this rookie class of receivers outshined the rest of the class. I really do. Rashee Rice, obviously a dog, and played really, really well for the Chiefs. Can't go wrong with my boy 6th round pick Demario Douglas, who led the Patriots in receptions and in receiving yards, and I think broke the rookie record for one of those. I don't remember which one, for our team, not for the league, obviously, but for the
that was another guy
for the Patriots. Yeah, Zay Flowers is already a fringe Pro Bowl player in his first season in that, you know, he was the guy that Lamar Jackson was going to in crunch time. You know, not Odell Beckham, not Rashad Bateman, not any of those other guys. You know, when Mark Andrews wasn't there, he was looking for Zay. And I think that's really impressive. Puka Nacua, who could forget? Nobody even knew who he was. I didn't know who he was. And I did some work on this past draft. I did some absolute work because I thought we were going to draft some wide receivers. And he absolutely, I mean, everybody loves Puka Nacua. You know,
I mean, he actually broke like the rookie records.
Like, he actually did. Yeah, he actually did
in the league.
Yeah, he didn't kind of do it. He actually did. So I am just so impressed with amongst the hype coming in. The hype was not there for the receivers coming into this class, and I think they took it personally and it showed. So congratulations to them. Obviously. I think the amount of injuries, as LB said, and the storylines of that seem to be unfinished, untold tales, that what could have been that didn't. You know, a lot of that happened this season, and obviously, I said I wouldn't do it, but I did. Taylor Swift brought about 1.2 million more viewers to the NFL this season, and Goodell made a point to go up to her after the Super Bowl and shake her hand and thank her for the extra bonus that goes into his pocket. And with that, we don't have any money in our pocket, but we're done. So have a good day, everybody. Until next time.
Thank you for listening to the No Pun Intended Sportscast. Be sure to check out the Thinking Hound and to like, share, and subscribe.